Attention, citizens of the galaxy. The New Republic calls upon you. Yavin and Endor were only the start. We have the Empire on the run. Their forces are fragmented. Their allies are dissolving. Now is the time, more than ever, to support the New Republic and enlist at your local office. Come pilot the likes of the T-65B X-Wing starfighter. That which has been flown by famous Republic pilots including Luke Skywalker, Wedge Antilles, and Poe Dameron. The T-65B has served our Republic time and time again, and it can serve you too. So do your part and enlist today. The Imperials might be on the run, but they're still a threat, and we need pilots like you to fly the T-65B X-Wing Space Superiority Fighter. As much as I like my TIE Interceptor, every time I see an X-Wing, there's some inner part of me that just goes absolutely bonkers. I love the TIE Interceptor, I love Imperial design, but the X-Wing will always have a spot in my heart for just being an iconic spacecraft. From the sounds, to the engines, to just those sexy S-foils. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sabinias here, and today I'm going to be giving you a no-frills guide on 2 loadouts for the X-Wing Starfighter. This thing is extremely versatile, and I wanted to do one loadout, but it would be an injustice if I didn't include 2 loadouts that we've been using to effect on stream. So we're going to go through both a dogfighting loadout today, as well as a capital ship loadout. So starting with the lasers. We're going to be using standard lasers, though burst are equally effective. Honestly, after extensive testing, burst and standard do equal amounts of DPS, with standard getting slightly more overcharged shots, so that's what I'm going to go with. Next up, we're going to be working on our auxiliaries. Now, I like to take the repair droid, like the interceptor. I like having a little bit of longevity in a fight, but if you want to bring a little bit of extra DPS, you're welcome to use a starfighter missile, or sorry, the concussion missile. We're also going to be taking barrage rockets as illustrated again by the interceptor video. Barrage rockets are gross, so make sure you use those. Seeker warheads for our countermeasures, although honestly a quick point to be made here was actually illustrated by some viewers that the chaff particle burst is actually effective in countering rocket meta, so I might come back to this in the future, but use seeker warheads or chaff if you prefer. After that, you're going to take the light hull. This is honestly preference at this point. There's different options that you can take. There's the Car Bounty Reflect for stealth later, and also the Chapat Deflector hull. If you want to min-max your shield use, you're going to lose some health for that, but honestly, it's up to you. I prefer the Agile hull just to get a little bit of extra maneuverability out of my X-Wing, but your mileage may vary. Secondly, we're going to be working on shields. Now this one's important. You're going to want resonant shields. The reason we're using resonant shields is they help build your laser charge. Now, once you get your shields to maximum overcharge, you're going to be building laser charge as well. So this takes a little bit of your micromanaging out of your loadout, and it's absolutely worth your time. So make sure you grab that resonant shield. Lastly, and get ready for this. That's right, baby, we're gonna slam. Now, the speed penalty from this upgrade does suck, but the whole point of this loadout is that I tried to build a loadout that felt similar to Elite Dangerous. I don't like how all of your buffs decay over time, so with each component here, including the slam engine, when properly used, you'll be building your buffs constantly. Your overshield, your laser, and your boost, and that's what we want. Moving on to Loadout 2, our anti-capital build. Now this one's actually kind of cheeky-breeky. We're going to be taking the same lasers as before. Honestly, again, you can use burst if you want to. I use standard now. I was a big fan of burst, but standard works just fine. The only difference this time is we're going to be doubling down on our torpedo loadout. Now, a lot of people right now don't actually like torpedoes. They're slow, they're easy to shoot down, and more often than not, as you've seen as by, well, you know, we're just going to address it right now. The TIE bomber meta sucks, but as I digress. As an attempt to use something different, we're going to be doubling down on torpedoes, okay? Just Grab them now and bear with me. So grab your torpedoes. This time for countermeasures, we're going to be using the sensor jammer. Now, why you're using this will come into play later on, but just trust me. This will be an integral part of our stealth loadout. It's frustrating, just hear me out. Next up, we're going to be taking the Carbonti Reflect Hull. Now, this is going to, again, be another integral part of the gameplay. This will allow you to actually deliver your torpedoes at maximum range and dank all over those capital ships and their shields without the other team knowing what's going on. So grab that Carbonti Reflect Hull. We're also going to be taking the Ray Shield for the X-Wing. Now, you still can dogfight in this loadout. You are more than capable of defending yourself. You're still a threat, but the reason I'm using the resonant shield as before is that it's more important for you to honestly just tuck tail and run. The whole point of this loadout is to deliver your payload.
We must move the payload.
Yes, that payload. No, seriously, play the objective. This is an objective-based loadout. Deliver the payload, and finally, for our last part, we're going to be grabbing the thrust engine. This is again preference at this point. You can use the slam engine if you want, but I noticed that having at least a high passive speed is more preferable than having the slam engine, because this loadout is pretty simple. You're basically going to overcharge your shields at the beginning of spawn and then put all of your power into thrust and build your boost from there. You shouldn't be dogfighting in this. You can, but the whole point is deliver the torpedoes. And that completes our 2 loadouts thus far. So let's walk through how you're actually supposed to play these. The playstyle of this craft is going to come down similarly to the TIE Interceptor video I did beforehand, and rightly so. With the combination of barrage rockets and your choice of lasers, you become a competent threat to anyone, even TIE bombers who want to try to joust with you. I would still be heavily cautious of them, as they will win in a 1v1 if they get the beat on you first, but if you're daring like me, you can push it, especially if you angle your shields correctly. That's a topic that we're going to be covering in later videos, as some people still seem to be confused by it, but it's important to note that unlike the TIE Interceptor, you have an additional system on top to manage. Now, first thing you'll be doing the moment you spawn in, make sure you shunt all of the power to your shields. Get that nice overcharge buff that you see on the footage below in your shields. Then focus on your lasers, which should be charging by virtue of the resonant shields little perk. And then after that, you can throw your power into your engines. You'll still have to toggle around beforehand. In fact, putting power to weapons will give you a few extra seconds of overcharged fire, as if you hadn't. But this just takes a little bit of micromanaging out of the equation. All in all, this is a pretty simple and straightforward build, and it allows you to also attack capital ships and objectives just like the TIE Interceptor build. Now, the one thing that I will add on to this is that you have a level of durability that I only wish my Interceptor had. As illustrated by this footage, with enough practice you can get pretty competent in escaping situations that would have left you dead as an Interceptor. Provided you don't plow into rocks like this gentleman here, you'll be on your way to being a competent pilot for the Rebel fleet in no time, taking out derp bombers, because goddamn, please fix this, EA. I swear to God, every time I see one of those now, I'm getting PTSD. But I digress. Simple rules to follow. Overcharge your shields. Make sure your laser buff is also built. Make sure you have power in your slam engines. Never be without your boosts in this build, and you'll be fine. So let's move on to our second build, the Cheeky Breeky Stealth Torpedo Bomber. This is where things are going to get slightly different. As for beforehand, we were focusing on engaging any enemy we could. This time, you're not going to be doing that. Making sure that that little stealth icon that you can now see on the HUD is illuminated at all times, and it only appears when you're actually in stealth, so it'll disappear when you are within range of other enemy fighters. Keep that in mind. Making sure that we have this icon on at almost all times, you're going to be doing very cheeky runs on the enemy cruisers and the capital ships. Try to approach at 1500 meters, and make sure you let loose your ion torpedo and then your proton torpedo. If you watch some of the footage, you'll notice that I stagger them. Both of the torpedoes actually travel at the same speed. So if you hit with an ion torpedo first, more than likely against a cruiser, you're going to knock out the shields in one shot, followed up by a very nasty proton torpedo hit. When you combine this with teamwork, this is where this build gets really ridiculous. In fact, other popular YouTubers have also been running this build, one of them being Eckhart's Ladder, or X2. Check him out over at his channel here. I'll have a quick shout out in the description. However, I digress. Focus on dropping your torpedoes, heading back to the ship as you saw there, resupply as needed, and also don't be afraid to swap. As you notice here, I actually had to jump back into my dogfighting loadout. We got pushed back onto the defense. You can dogfight in that craft, but especially with the thrust engine that I personally like to add, the X-Wing becomes a heavy, wet boat. So your mileage will vary. You don't have to take the thrust engine. I like boosting to the objectives as quick as possible, delivering the payload, and then boosting back and either resupplying at the cruisers or getting a resupply from one of our friendlies here. Now, if, like I said, and this is where this build is a little bit more varied, you're going to find success with this build with a well-coordinated team. We've had supports on our stream here that have constantly delivered a seemingly infinite supply of torpedoes, and cutting out that travel time, having to go back to either your cruisers or your mothership, is what makes this build shine. The only thing that you have to keep in mind is they might not necessarily be able to stealth as well as you can, so you have to actually look after them, otherwise they're just going to be glowing targets. So again, a simple walkthrough here. Make sure you approach at 1500, try to stay away as far as you can, launch your ion, then your proton, try to get that shield knockout punch, fly back to your nearest resupply, rinse, repeat. And like I said, during this whole time you want to make sure that your shields are built up. We do have ray engines, ray shields, so they are going to decay over time. However, that 25% extra damage reduction will help us flee. As you notice, I do angle my shields when I'm running away, and again, we'll be covering that later, but it's very important to get used to angling your shields forward when you're attacking head on, back when you're fleeing, and just balanced for overall general use. There are some caveats for that later. Certain maps, this build tends to struggle. We've found in the Xavian Abyss, it is very difficult to actually make this build shine, mostly by virtue of just the fact that it's a giant tunnel. But other than that, Yavin, Essalus, any of those open maps, especially ones where you can hide behind rocks and objects, this build is going to shine. It's so freaking ridiculous because combined with that scrambler where nobody can target you, you'll just drop your payload. And in this clip that you'll see here, I had no idea that I was on track to actually killing the Star Destroyer. It is a nice and welcome change from the dirt bomber meta that you see, and it feels a lot more Star Wars-y, flinging torpedoes and coordinating volleys with your teammates. And like I said, it just, the amount of surprise that is evoked just by launching a torpedo and finding out that you killed it is, it's a pretty fun playstyle, and I recommend it. That being said, at the end of the day, both of these loadouts do excel at doing objective-based teamwork. So if you want to use just the rocket X-Wing interceptor loadout here that I had set up previously, you can see in the clip below that it works quite fine for that. Go ahead and do that. Both are good at doing the job, just different flavors for different folks. That being said, this pretty much wraps up how both playstyles are supposed to be done. I hope these loadouts have helped you. I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and hopefully they help you win some matches and try something a little bit different. My name is Sabanias here. I'll be talking to you guys next time about shield management, how to effectively do it, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care, fly safe, and enjoy some Star Wars Squadrons. If you have enjoyed this video or found it informative, why don't you consider giving it a like, and feel free to subscribe. And if you want, come hang out with us on Twitch. I stream this game a lot and would love to see you in Star Wars Squadrons.
I got the healing, I'm fine. Oh. All that effort only to
It was at this moment he knew.